Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome to the Networking RX podcast. I'm your host, Frank Yagan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Today we have another great guest. As our ongoing subscribers know, often on this podcast, it's just me talking about ideas, insights, and best practices for building professional relationships and excelling with our business networking. But occasionally, I'll be interviewing subject matter experts, authors, speakers, thought leaders, social scientists, and these people share with us their knowledge to help us build relationships as well as kind of understand why humans interact the way they do. And from time to time, we're all a sample size of one, meaning our own experiences, kind of give us some thoughts as to how the rest of the world works. But you need to really understand it, you need kind of a broader sample size. And that's why it's good talking with other people. Today, I have on here with me, all the way from the other side of the world, Kamalini Roy. And she is an entrepreneur coach, and her mission is to help 10,000 entrepreneurs create wealth and live a life of fulfillment. An incredible background. She is a Cambridge Commonwealth Scholar. Most people don't even know what that is, but it's something because it's the University of Cambridge. And University of Cambridge is kind of like the big brother to Harvard University, in my estimation. And so she certainly has done a lot with that. She also has education in India, and she's worked with both multinational companies serving the whole world, as well as domestic companies in India. She's got a book that has come out recently. It's Create Wealth by Creating High Performance Teams. And that's just an amalgamation of her experiences and her learning from various teams that she's helped with. She's a pianist. She's a singer. We won't make you sing, Kamalini. And she loves to travel and can't wait probably to get back on the road with things with COVID-19. So welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Frank. I'm really excited to be here with you. And it's only because of COVID, like we were discussing, that we are here today together. Yeah,
it is a funny thing. I mean, it's this horrible thing that will probably it'll be interesting. I would love to be alive 100 years from now just to see how they look back at this. Nobody else wants me alive, just me. But it's created there's been bad things, but it's created a lot of positive things, and it's brought me closer to the rest of the world in ways that I never thought I would. And I don't know that we ever go back from that. I mean, I'll certainly be meeting with people socially, locally, but I'll always have connections, with you and David Pryor, and that'll go on and on and on. Anyhow, we could talk about that forever. I want to talk about your book, Create Wealth by Creating High Performance Teams. I've said this a lot on this podcast. We talk about teams, and teams are really made up of relationships. And we talk about professional relationships, and those are really nothing more than relationships we have at work, but they're not a whole lot different than our personal relationships. I mean, you were sharing before we hit record that your husband's getting his COVID vaccine. We're recording this. It's in early April of 2021. And you're not going to get a vaccine for 3 days because just in case he gets sick. Right. So it's a matter of cooperation, and that's certainly on a personal level. But these same things are happening in the business world as well. That's it, so anyhow, why don't you tell us about this book? Let's talk about relationships and what you've seen. I mean, you've lived in many parts of the world. You've traveled in many parts of the world. You more than anybody know that people are people, and it doesn't matter the color of their skin, their religion, whatever. So.
Absolutely. In fact, Frank, the world has brought us closer on a technology platform, but nothing can ever replace what a human heart feels for a human heart. No amount of technology can replace that. And it's wonderful that we are talking about relationships out here, because the entire premise of my book is that the starting point of any team to be a winning team has to be a basic orientation of trust. And trust is the basis of any relationship. It's not just professional relationships in your team. If we look at it wider, whether it's a husband wife relationship, whether it's relationships as far as friends are concerned, siblings, parents and children, it starts with trust. And the reason why I wrote this book, Frank, is because in my 20 years of work experience, I have worked with winning teams, and I have worked very clearly with teams where I feel that the lack of leadership is what is resulting in the collapse of the team, because the people remain the same. And why I've called this create wealth by creating high performance teams is, I believe if a team functions in a trusting way, in a bonded way, in collaboration and cooperation, and in full harmony and synchronization, then the business generates revenue. And when the business generates revenue, the individual members, they get higher salaries, they get incentivized. And that has been my experience in the company that I worked for when I was in ANZ Greenlays, and then later it got changed to Standard Chartered Mutual Fund. It got sold, and we were a team that was together for 11 years. And that company, Frank, sold 40 times in a short period of 8 years, which is unheard of in 2001 and 2008. You hear of that now. The world has reached that stage now. But in 2000, early 2000s, that didn't happen. And the only way that I felt wealth was created was because the team didn't look at each other as team members. We looked at each other as friends, as families. And today, my closest relationships actually come from my colleagues and team members way back from the Standard Chartered Mutual Fund team. And then later, once, after the company got sold a second time over and we parted ways, we are all still so connected. We are all at each other's homes. We are constantly in touch with each other. The CEO of the company is my mentor today. I didn't find that in the other companies that I worked for. There was no trust in the way the company was being built. People were competing against each other rather than competing with the world outside along with each other. And that is what made me write this book, that what is it that I learned from a winning team, what needs to be there in every single team. And that is the basic premise of my book.
What do you think the difference is between the winning teams and the losing teams? And when I say the teams that had that trust, just had that feel that you couldn't wait to go to work.
We couldn't wait to go to work. Absolutely.
Right. What do you think the difference was?
So I think, without pointing fingers at anybody, we were all youngsters. We were in our 20s then, Frank. And we kind of blindly followed our leadership team. And our leadership team was very proactive in ensuring that bond, that trust was created amongst team members. And this is what I saw lacked in the leadership or entrepreneurs and founders I worked with later. The entrepreneurs and founders were not focusing on building the team. They were focusing on building clients, in generating revenue. But that comes at a later stage. If you build your team, if your team works cohesively based on a relationship of trust, clients will come, revenue will come, because everybody is working then at their full commitment levels. And the entrepreneur and founder doesn't need to jump into the shoes of every team member and do their job for them, because their team member will do their job well enough to generate revenue. And I feel if I can point it down to one thing, it'll be the leadership, the how a leadership can build or break a team.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I I've been self-employed for a long time, but my original stint in working, what I noticed was people at the entry level where I was at were looking for validation from our superiors. Hey, you're doing a good job or whatever. And it wasn't forthcoming. And I think part of the reason it wasn't forthcoming because that level was looking ahead to their people, their superiors, for validation, for appreciation. And it wasn't coming, and looking all the way up and all the way to the top. And there was some insecurity at the top. And so, there was nothing that ever really trickled down. I don't know. I don't know why that is. I just think some people care and some people don't, is really what it comes down to. Agreed?
Absolutely. In fact, I just feel that it's very easy to get people to work for you if you can connect with their heart. Because at the end of the day, people, I mean, if you look at people in the army, they are ready to put out their life for, their colleagues. And we may not have to take it to that level when we are working in a professional organization. But if you have somebody who cares for you, who loves you, whether that's your colleague, your subordinate, or your superior, you will want to do the best for that person.
Yeah.
And you know that in return you will be doing the best for yourself. So I'll just share a little bit about my experience with my CEO and the high level of trust that we had in what he said, and we believe that he was really what his intentions were good for us. I remember, sometime in between my journey in that company, I had a great job offer. And I went up to him and I said, I have this great job offer and I'm thinking of putting down my papers. And he just said that, there's something that I can't tell you at this stage. The only thing that I will tell you is that please don't put down your papers. There's something big coming up for all of us. That's all I can tell you. Believe me, trust me. I know this is an unbelievable offer that you've got, but just don't put down your papers now. And Frank, believe it or not, it was a superb role I got. It was an outstanding offer. And I didn't put down my papers only because I trusted him on his words. And sure enough, within 1.5 years, we heard about the sale, of our company. And the leadership was so magnanimous that in that sale process, they worked out something for every single employee of the company in terms of wealth creation.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you work with a team with very, very strong bonds, very strong relationships, that it's just word. If somebody tells you not to do something based on his word, you know that the person is meaning well for you.
Yeah. And I think that's a wonderful story. And it's interesting because you can look at two leaders, similar companies, and they've done studies on this, right? That they've done studies. Yeah. That one leader is better than the other because of this building of trust. What I wonder, and I don't know if anybody's ever looked beyond this, what's in the background of that leader causing them to be the way they are? Because the one who isn't building trust is somehow or another has got sort of a scarcity mentality. I need to keep this, and the others don't have a scarcity mentality. And it's more, listen, I'm not worried about how much of the pie I get. I'm worried about making the pie bigger.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys have pie in India. We have pie in America. That's why we're all fat over here. But you know what I'm saying, right? They try to make the whole bigger.
Absolutely. In fact, that is what the leadership team in this, again, I go back to my winning team example all the time. That is what the leadership team kept on instilling in us, that, if everybody can work together to ensure that the company does well, then your returns or your incentives will be much higher, even if you're the worst performer. It doesn't matter if you haven't performed that year. But
right.
If you are a top performer and the company does not do well as a whole, your incentives will be negligible. You may not get anything. So all of us knew that all of us had to work hard first for the common good, then
right.
for us. So yes, the whole pie was a story which we clearly understood, and probably we were at a much more impressionable age because the team was young. We trusted our leaders, And when I went to a company after that where I didn't see these qualities, what I saw in the leaders is they didn't care about the future of the employees. They didn't care whether the employee was going to earn, do well, the betterment of the employee. They only cared about, are you generating revenue? And
Yeah.
as a result of that, these companies I went to, they could not retain employees, they could not retain talent. The average performer stayed back because they knew that they would not find a job outside, or they would not be able to replace their salary. So they would stay back in the very toxic environment. But the people who were sure of themselves, who knew that they could easily find themselves something better, left, sometimes within 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, less than a year.
Yeah.
So it's clearly, I'll boil everything down to the bond that people share in an organization, and there is a systematic way in which you can build this bond. Because when people come together, the trust doesn't happen from the first day, but there is a systematic way in which the bond can be built, and that is the systematic way I have shared in my book called Creating Wealth. And this is actually what I've noted down from how we experienced it in the winning team versus what we did not experience in the other teams. It's just systematically how to build relationships.
Yeah. Um, we all know when we're in a good situation. We all know when we're in a bad situation. The $1 million question is, how do you spot them before you get into them, right? Because if you have two offers, or if you have two situations, and it might even be for self-employed people making a decision between working with one client or another client, to be able to spot those, because everybody's going to tell you, yeah, we're a team. What are your thoughts on that?
How
To
to
spot
spot?
them. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the way I've done it, and I don't know whether others have, but before jumping onto something, I've tried to speak to people in the industry who are aware. And in the financial services industry, where I have spent my 2 decades, fortunately, the industry is very small.
Mm.
And uh, you know what's happening inside an organization months before you join. You just have to pick up the phone and speak to 8 people or 10 people, and you know. So I would say the way to approach, even if you're self-employed, is to try and find out from people who have partnered with the organization, people who are working in the organization. Talk to 5 or 7 people out there, find out what the environment is about before you jump in, to understand whether your core values are resonating with the core values of whoever you want to work with. At the end of the day, it boils down to that, Frank, which motivates
Yeah.
you or which makes you want to work alongside or be with somebody, that your core values have to match.
Yeah. No, I think that's good advice. I wish I would have done it when I accepted a job all those years ago. And I'm certainly not complaining, because I think we're all in the place that we're supposed to be in. And I was supposed to have, I don't want to call it a horrible experience, but it was stressful. It was trying. It was certainly not fulfilling. And maybe certainly part of that's me. 51% of it's me. But I wish I would have been more insightful to just kind of know. But you're young, you're trying to get a job, and you get a job, and it's like, hey, this is great, and it's shiny,
Yeah.
but it's not gold. And that understanding the difference. Let's switch gears here for a little bit. And as we wrap up, I want to talk a little bit about your coaching practice. You're trying to help 10,000 entrepreneurs, live a life of fulfillment. Let's talk about that, things you do, people you're looking for, opportunities you're looking for, how the audience can help you.
Okay. Thanks, Frank. So, what I try to do in my coaching methodology is I have a 3 stage methodology where I work with my clients for them to understand what matters to them. Very often, my clients don't even know what they stand for. They don't know what their core values are. They are not aware of it. So, the first level is to make them aware of what they stand for, and then how can they ensure that this gets transferred to their business as well. The next stage, which is, I call my program ACE, ASE, awareness, skill set, and execution. The next stage in business is to develop skill sets which will help the business grow, whether it is for the entrepreneur himself or for the teams to identify what skill sets are required. And the third stage is execution. You cannot do anything if it's all on your mind. At the end of the day, you have to act on it. And it doesn't matter how small that step is. Today tomorrow should be a more progressive step than where you were today, no matter how small it is. And the idea is to ensure that you take that step. So this is my methodology. The kind of people I'm looking for are entrepreneurs who've been in business for at least 3 years and are now stuck, especially with teams. Because very often entrepreneurs come to me that they have a toxic environment, there's a lot of politics, people are competing with each other, and all these things can be very easily resolved. It takes some time. Like I said, there's a systematic process, and often it points down to how the leader himself is, running the team. Like if I ask the leader any question about the team members which go beyond his work, the leader doesn't know. How can you connect with the heart of somebody if you are not bothered about him and his personal life, and you are only, connected with him as far as how much money have you brought in today? What is the for 8 hours that you put in at your work today? Your team cannot progress that way. So the idea is for the leader to be empathetic towards the team, engage with the team. The first job of a leader is to ensure that his team feels that the company belongs to them as well, and they are a part of the whole thing, and the leader is interested in their well-being and is not looking at them for, like money bags, that you all are money bags for me. The leader is interested in the team members as a human being. So while most entrepreneurs feel that it's a waste of time to talk to your team members about general things in life, about children, who doesn't love talking about their children, about the challenges that they're facing in their family, about their mindset, how has the current situation affected them? If the entrepreneur is not interested in their team members as people, I think it's very, very difficult to generate revenue. And that is what I try to instill in my coaching while developing teams.
No, that's awesome. That's, I think at the end of the day, we need to recognize that everybody goes home to somebody that loves them and have kids that look up to them. And people appreciate that. Best way to get a hold of you is through your website?
Yes, that would be the best way. I'm also there on podcast, on YouTube, so I'm contactable. I respond to all the messages that come to me through Instagram, podcast, YouTube, and on my website. That's the best way to get in touch with me.
Okay.
And on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn.
I'll put obviously your name will be in the show notes, and your web address as well. Well, I really appreciate your time today. Your book's coming out. Will it be on Amazon? People can get the book on Amazon? Okay.
That's right. It'll be there on Amazon Kindle as well as on paperback.
Okay. Well, good. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. I really enjoyed this conversation with you.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.